This conference will now be recorded.
Hey, do you know if we have a quorum?
We have quorum.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to WAMPO meeting for Tuesday, May 10th, 2022. I want to welcome everyone that's here in the audience and those that are joining us online. We do have a quorum, and so I'd like to call the meeting to order. First item is approval of the agenda. I make a motion we approve the agenda for today.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. The next item is approval of the minutes. I was not here that day. Does someone have a motion to approve the minutes from April the 12th? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Next item is our director's report. I'll turn it over to Chad.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, good afternoon, members of the Transportation Policy Body. On an overview today, we have 3 or 4 items. First off, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, the Long Range Transportation Plan. Apologize, sorry about that. The Long Range Transportation Plan is due in 2025. The work begins and is constant, and staff is working on developing safety plan, active transportation plan, and committees work also is contributing little by little to the long range transportation plan. One example is today, staff will be presenting TIP selected projects for your approval. And those projects also came from the long-range transportation plan. So the effort of the long-range transportation plan and the vision for the region is another important item for our region and for all our members. So just want to keep you posted that in the upcoming meetings, staff would be developing a schedule and the list of tasks that lead to the transportation plan. What helps most is if all communities, contribute to their priorities and their needs. That makes the plan more valuable and great for our region. The second item for overview here is we have TIP selected projects. Our project selection committee appointed by you. In today's presentation, the project selection committee is oftentimes abbreviated as PSC. Just want to mention the acronym for the project selection committee. It's a lot of hard work that staff is very thankful to the project selection committee because the projects received for the TIP were many and the funds were limited. When the needs are many and the funds are limited, it's a challenge for the project selection committee, and they did a great job despite those constraints. And staff is extremely thankful for the hard work and contributions with the meetings that the project selection committee have done. The third item is regional economic development. That is your leadership and staff in conjunction with your goals and leadership. Staff is dedicated to invite economic development experts in the region. Today we have Derby, Dan Squares, and next month we have Kathy Sexton from Wichita, and the following month we have Sean Fox from Park City. And then we're still reaching out to member jurisdictions to see and hear each other, what each other's goals are. And then final is the bike ped count. This is an annual count that Ashley and Dora will be presenting in a little bit. And then the final after that is Title VI program update. That also staff is working in conjunction with Kansas Department of Transportation staff in developing Title VI program. That also Ashley will update. So let me request Ashley and Dora to talk about bike pit count and Title VI. Thank you, Ashley.
All right, thank you. So I just wanted to let you know that the 2022 annual bike pedestrian count is in the planning phases. We'll be doing it in September. And so over the next few months, we will be reviewing our count locations and deciding if we have any new ones we want to make sure we count. If you have any questions or have anybody who wants to volunteer at this, Dora would be the person to reach out to, and me as well, if you have specific questions. The Title VI program manual update, we just wanted to let you know that we're working on this plan, which ensures that we do not discriminate against anyone in our planning processes or anything that we do, and on the grounds of race, color, or national origin. And so KDOT requires us to put together a table which shows the membership of all of our committees broken down by race. And so in the next few days or so, we'll be sending out an email with this question for you, a very short email just asking if you could respond to that. We will have an option if you do not feel like disclosing, and that's fine as well. But we need to make sure we ask everyone. So thank you. And we will bring this back for your review and approval later once we finish the plan.
Very good. Well, thanks, Chad. Thank you for the updates. I appreciate it. Do we have any questions of the director's report before we move forward? I don't see anything. Next item on the agenda is public comments. If anyone is in the audience or online would like to speak during public comments, now is an opportunity.
Would I be able to say a couple words?
Certainly, go right ahead.
Thank you, David. I just wanted to really give out a big thank you to all the communities when the tornado went through Andover that pretty much instantly came over to help. We had like 800 volunteers that Monday, but really in the middle of the night, pitch dark, we had 6 different entities around us, different cities and the counties that instantly showed up with an amazing amount of equipment and people. And Dave was even telling me he was making calls to some businesses, and they opened up after dark and came out and helped as well. And it was amazing, and it's what's supposed to happen, I think. And it happened here in Kansas that way. And my God, you guys saved whoever was a part of that, or the communities that were part of that, saved a lot of, I'm not gonna say lives, because everybody, lived, thank goodness, but just did what was supposed to happen here in Kansas. And we do thank you and everybody here and everybody who's a part of that. So thank you.
Thank you, Troy. I appreciate the comments. And what I really appreciate is not only our community support, but the support of all the staff that was involved, whether it's fire, EMS, public works, and all the volunteers. When I went over to Andover the next day, they had fire in from Great Bend, from McPherson. People were in from all over this community that were there immediately. One of the things I mentioned to Troy, Lowe's, we talked to them after hours, and Lowe's started delivering boxes because people had their personal possessions laying in the street and in their yards. And so they provided packing boxes, and they provided boxes and tape and so forth so that they could start securing their goods. And they came in after hours and just donated all that equipment. We needed light-alls out there. And so we had a company that came and made several trips bringing lights so that we'd have lights for people to be able to operate. So this is the way the community should operate. It did operate that way. I am very proud of all of our staff, all of the staff from the city of Wichita and from all of the other communities that pitched in. It was a community effort. So thank you all for that. Anything else for public comments? Seeing nothing, we'll move on to the next item. New business. We have an action item on TIP selected projects. So Ashley, I think you're on.
I am, thank you. So I'm Ashley Byers. I'm going to provide some context to the TIP selection process, and then Nick will go into the specifics. We did a month-long call for projects that ended on March 9th, And then over the last month, the project selection committee met 3 times to review the projects and the scores that staff assigned to them. And once those projects are approved, hopefully today, they will be included in this document that we will develop over the summer and have a public comment period. And then we'll come back to you all for approval in summer or fall of this year. The project selection committee really had their work cut out for them because we received over 33 projects worth over $117 million. And we have projected about $26 million available in 2025 and 2026 total. And so it's a lot more need than we have funding for. And so we're very grateful for the project selection committee to going through the process and reviewing all of it and really making tough decisions. And so now Nick will go through the specifics of what they are recommending.
Thank you, Ashley. The project selection committee's recommendations came in the form of priority tiers, with the first priority being these 4 projects: Nelson Drive realignment, Oliver and Keachai Road intersection, NTP 2050 planning assistance, and Safe Routes to School planning assistance, being approved for full 80% WAMPO suballocated funding for qualifying phases in federal fiscal year 2024. The Derby and Keachai projects are projects that were already in the 2021 to 2024 TIP receiving WAMPO suballocated funds, and this is a recommendation that they be given additional funds to get them up to the 80% level that they were not at due to costs being greater than what was previously anticipated. And then the other 2 projects here are projects that will have WAMPO as the sponsor agency, in which it will distribute planning grants to member jurisdictions. The second tier is these 7 projects which would receive proportional funding, meaning that they would have the same percentage of their qualifying costs paid by WAMPO suballocated funds, but because they have different costs from one another, they would receive different dollar amounts. These are all new projects, and based on our current estimates of funds that will be available, these projects would receive less than 80% funding, less than the maximum. But we confirmed with the sponsors of each of these projects that at the funding levels that we do anticipate currently, that they would be able to proceed with the projects. So there would not be the problem of the projects having to be canceled and then this money going unused as a result. And of course, not of course, but it should be noted that if additional funding becomes available in the future, say from more being allowed to get carried over from one year to another, or de-obligations from other projects, or new funds being made available from the federal government, such as the highway infrastructure program or what have you, then that money could be used to fund these projects up to the 80% level potentially. So even though the current estimates have them below that, they could get up to that by the time they are obligated, and priority would be given first to projects in the current federal fiscal year, then to the following federal fiscal year, and so on. And if all those projects already mentioned got funded at the 80% level, fingers crossed, then any funds available after that would be made available to the City of Bel Air project, 45th Street North, Oliver to Woodlawn in 2026. Now if they decline those funds say, for example, if they determined that they were insufficient for their purposes to be able to proceed with the project, or if they were or they somehow got fully funded and then there was still money left over after that, then the funds would be made available to the City of Wichita project, Redbud Path, Woodlawn to K96, also in 2026. And so those are the priority tiers that the Project Selection Committee recommended. And so this body is being asked to either approve the PSC's recommendations as proposed, or to not approve them, or to approve them with specific changes. And at their April 25th meeting, the Technical Advisory Committee recommended that they be approved as is.
Well, thank you, Nick. I appreciate the update. I also appreciate all the work for the Project Selection Committee went through and the recommendations from the TAC. Does anyone have questions of Nick or anyone that served on the Project Selection Committee or the TAC? I don't see any questions at this time. And again, I appreciate all the work that everyone went through. I move that we approve the Project Selection Committee's project selections and WAMPO sub-allocated funding as proposed. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Again, thanks for all the work for everyone.
Mr. Chair, if I could have just one comment. I know when they started, they thanked the selection committee and the TAC for doing the work, but the amount of work that we had Chad and Nick and Ashley do by sorting, resorting, figuring, refiguring, giving us multiple options of how the money would be split, and doing that overnight in some cases, I just want to give them a public thank you as well.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that comment, and I appreciate all the work staff always goes through to take care of us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mayor. Also want to make a quick comment on the infrastructure law that recently passed, the Infrastructure Justification Jobs Act, also called Bill, the bipartisan infrastructure law. It's potential that all MPOs receive additional funds in the future than in the past, and also, in addition to the formula funds that is expected to receive more, there are also grants and applications that are potentially more available in the future as well. One of the successful ways of grant applications that can take place is strong partnerships, because that is what Federal Highway Administration program has indicated on many of these, for example, safety projects or climate and resiliency or bike ped trail projects. So when we apply those, staff strongly believes that WAMPO is great in partnerships within jurisdictions and as well as Kansas Department of Transportation and Federal Highway Administration. So this partnership will help us in the future is staff's belief. Just want to share with you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And again, thanks for all the work. And I know that Mayor Usri just took over the TAC, and I appreciate all the work that went through to get through this process. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is the Federal Roadway Functional Classification Map. And Nick, I think you're still on. Whoops. Ashley, you starting it out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just really quick, I was gonna set the stage for Nick to talk. So the Federal Functional Classification Map shows current users as well as future roads. So the future ones are dotted. And the main point of this map is projects need to be on here in order to be eligible for federal funding. So we update this map every so often and make sure it reflects what roads we have and what roads we want to have and the way that they operate. So now, Nick.
Thank you, Ashley. Before we get into it, I would like to thank Marcela Quintanilla and Dora Gallo for doing most of the work on this project. I'll skim through this very quickly. As you've heard at prior meetings, federal functional classifications run 1 through 7 from interstates down to local roads. And those classifications, as Ashley said, are used for funding decisions. The classifications based off of volume of usage, speed, access, egress, etc. Well, you've heard all this before. So as you'll see on page 33 of your packet, the current federal functional classification map that is approved for the WAMPO region from 2019. An interactive version of that map is also on the WAMPO website at wampo.org/fun-class. And now this on page 34 of your packet is the map that we are proposing to replace it. Well, you'll notice that in your packet, it does not show the local roads, whereas when it is eventually made available to you in GIS form and through the interactive version on the website, local roads will be visible. And you'll see on here that there are 2 roadway segments that are dotted lines. That is because those are anticipated future roadway segments that are being put on here in anticipation of them being built, so that we have them for that purpose. Let's see. And you'll see on pages 35 through 37 of your packet the specific locations of the changes that have been proposed in inset maps. So you'll see where everything is that is being altered. And on these next 2 slides, which correspond to pages 38 and 39 of your packet, are the 102 changes that have been proposed. Some of them are functional classification changes for roadway segments, but others are realignments or the addition or deletion of a road segment in order to make the map correspond to the actual roadways and how they are, because some things were still out of date or not entirely accurate in that regard, not just in terms of the classification of the roadways. These have all been put together in cooperation with the relevant member jurisdictions and reviewed by KDOT staff, so that we have confidence that these are valid designations of functional classifications for if this is approved by this body, it is submitted to KDOT for approval. And so your action options, as usual, are to approve or not approve, or approve with specific modifications. And the TAC recommended approving as is at their April 25th meeting.
Very good, Nick. Thank you. Well, if you look at pages 38 and 39, there are a lot of changes that are involved in this. I guess I need a little bit more detail on it. Did the WAMPO staff compile all this, and how were the different communities involved in this to make the decisions?
We put out requests to communities asking them if there were any changes that they wanted made to make those specific requests to us, and then we would work with KDOT to determine first if those are valid changes that make sense and fit the federal guidelines, and then get the approval that way. And then also WAMPO staff found specific errors that we took upon ourselves to correct. For example, an extremely tiny roadway segment, not even the entire distance between 2 intersections, that was missed and had the wrong functional classification. So that kind of thing that could not possibly be right, we fixed that kind of thing. And then also KDOT found changes that were needed in various places, and the KDOT staff proposed those, and we incorporated those into the changed map as well to correspond with their functional classification maps, as well as with the requests from the member jurisdictions. And the request that started all of this actually was the request to add the segment of 95th Street South that will eventually cross the Arkansas River, so that would be in place. And then, and because we had to do that anyway, it was decided to open it up to other changes, and that's how we got up to 102 distinct changes.
Oh, very good. Well, I want to thank folks in KDOT, all of our staff for the details, because this, if you look through this with the maps and the 102 different changes, this took a lot of work. So I want to thank you very much for that. Does anyone have any questions of Nick before we move forward with this item? Seeing nothing, I move that we approve the changes as proposed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all again for the work. The next item is an update on US 54 East Kellogg project. Welcome, Raj.
All right. Good afternoon. I'm Raja Govindaswamy. I'm the KDOT project manager for the East Kellogg project that's currently underway. And I want to introduce some folks with me. And Don Snyder, whom you know, he's going to be joining me in some of the presentation. And Brian Kidwell is our PMC project manager, and Griffin Smith is our project coordinator. I do recognize some of you. I used to be a consulting engineer in Wichita for nearly 40 years, and I have now made the switch to the public sector. I'm very excited to present this project and be the project manager. So we will move on. Let's see. I think I need to go. I need to go to full screen. Yeah, I'm not able to. The mouse is not. Can you help me? Or somebody? I'm sorry. Once I get the full screen, then I could just. There you go. I wanted to give you the framework for the project schedule. That's the purpose of this slide. There are 3 projects that's going on right now in Wichita area. The North Interchange, way up there, as you may have driven through. That's going to have another letting sometime this year, and the entire project is slated for completion in the fall of 2025. The orange one is the ongoing design of K96, widening that from existing 2-lane to a 6-lane freeway. That's currently under design. That'll be let in 2026 and slated for completion in 2028. That brings us to the other bookend of the K96 at the bottom right in blue, and that's the East Kellogg project from K96 to 159th Street. And the deadline, the schedule for that is from now till end of this December of 2025. And again, the goal for KDOT is not to have 3 projects going on concurrently in construction or delay East Kellogg project beyond 2028. So that is the reason for that schedule, and hopefully this slide explains that context. Project goals. Reduce traffic congestion is the #1 goal. Increase safety, trip reliability, support economic growth in the region. One of the important goals of the project that's highlighted in red is completion in December 2025. Also stay within the current construction budget of $225 million and minimize overall duration of construction impact to the area. MOT is going to be a very significant factor, maintenance of traffic. Don, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Okay, this project, everybody knows that each time we've completed another phase of the East Kellogg improvements, it just pushes the traffic congestion to the next set of signals beyond the freeway section. Currently, in the evening rush hour, traffic backs up onto the K96 off ramps to US 54. Everybody who's driven through that area in the afternoon rush hour knows that. I live out in that part of town, so I've seen it multiple times. I'm usually going through there later in the evening, so I don't see the congestion. But when I have driven through there during normal evening rush hour, I get backed up onto the Kellogg, the K96 off ramps. Obviously, the improvements we made that were just completed about a year ago improved the traffic flow to where it's a great crosstown commute now from east side to west side, from 143rd all the way to the west side of town. But with the growth in Andover, the traffic congestion, the development that's going on in Andover right now near Yorktown, Andover has grown significantly in the last 20 years. When the 1991 tornado hit Andover, I think the population was around 5,000 in Andover. Now I believe it's up around 15,000. There's a tremendous amount of traffic coming into Wichita in the morning rush hour. So typically getting off one of the side roads onto Kellogg during the morning rush hour takes you 2 or 3 cycles of getting through those signals. So the growth is really occurring in that side of town. This improvement is needed. So we're going to try to improve the traffic flow. The thing we've got to really focus on during construction is maintaining the constant flow of traffic out there. On the previous East Kellogg projects, the way that they were constructed, that everybody's aware of, was to construct the frontage roads first and then focus on main line. We envision that's probably going to be how this next section is constructed. It's the most efficient way and most obvious way to construct it. We are going to try to maintain 2 lanes of traffic as much as we can during the project in each direction. There will be times when we may not be able to do that. And at that time, we may have to rely on the local road systems for temporary detours. And those are for obvious issues like traffic safety when we're erecting steel girders and things of that sort, or if we're about to implement a traffic change or change the way the traffic is flowing, we may have to temporarily put traffic down to single lane. We are going to try to do that during the off-peak hours as much as possible and try to utilize the local road system as infrequently as we can. So the maintenance of traffic is going to be crucial for this project. It's just we want to have everybody that lives out in that side of town and uses the roadways on that side of town to come away with a good feeling that this project was really needed and we were constructing it as efficiently as possible without causing major disruptions to the traveling public. So MOT, maintenance of traffic, is going to be crucial on this project, and we are going to stress that very strongly to the design build team that we picked for the project. So we want everyone to be reassured that we're going to try to do our best to keep traffic flow as efficiently as we can as the project is being constructed. So.
Thanks, Don. What we are doing currently is an EPA, which is the environmental assessment. And for that, there's 2 phases of the project. Phase 1 is the current construction project in black. And from the left to right, it's K96 to 159th Street. And then the next phase is through Andover from 159th to Prairie Creek Road. For the NEPA purposes or the acquiring environmental clearance, we are going to do the both phases, but the construction is only on phase 1. This project was previously designed to a certain stage, and an environmental clearance was obtained in 2011, but it's outdated, so we'll have to update all of that at this point. This is the actual physical project scope. K96 on the left, interchange improvements, free-flowing ramps, grade separated intersections at 143rd and 159th Street. And then the project will transition about a half a mile east of 159th to Onewood Drive. We went through a process of selecting the best delivery method. There are 3 methods that we considered: the conventional design bid build, and the newly up and coming design build construction method. And the last one is progressive design build. For example, the water project in Wichita is being designed and constructed using that progressive design build, just to give you a reference. It turned out that the progressive design build is the only way we could deliver the project in the given time frame, and that's primarily due to the early engagement of the design building team to the project. And it also utilizes extensive collaboration between the owner, the designer, and the contractor. I think we pointed out the schedule again, the NEPA or the environmental assessment. We hope to get that done by January of 2023. The selection of the PDB or progressive design build contractor is going on at the current time, and we hope to have them in place in October of this year. And the final construction, again, main substantial portion of the project, the mainline Kellogg, our goal is to get that done by December of 2025 and open that for traffic. We also want you to have a single point of contact with KDOT because of the many moving parts and the challenges in this project. I would be serving as the single point of contact for the KDOT and the public. And there's some information. Also, I brought some one-page material for handout. I'm going to leave it up here, so you're welcome to take this with you and share it with others as needed. With that, I think we're here to answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you, Raj and Don. I appreciate it. First of all, on behalf of the community, we want to thank Secretary Lorenz and KDOT staff for moving forward with this project right behind every other project that they're finishing up. So that was very great. It was great news when this announcement was made. So we appreciate it very much. It impacts City of Wichita. It impacts Butler County. It impacts Andover. I know it runs through a couple of county commissioners' districts. So let me open it up and see if anyone has any questions of Raj or Don.
I just have one, if you don't mind.
Go right ahead, Troy.
The phase 2 construction, is that potentially to start up immediately upon the finish of phase 1 construction, or will there be a delay or a separation by years or more? I'm just, what do I need to tell the citizens of Andover?
At this point, the funding source for phase 2 is not identified. Obviously, the sooner the better, but I don't have any information about the funding or the estimated start time for phase 2. But I think as soon as the funding becomes available, I think that would, presumably that would proceed as soon as possible.
I appreciate that. And I really also appreciate the website that you've put up for this for the citizens to track it. That's very well done and needed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brent, did you have anything?
Well, that's a good question, Troy. The next phase would have to go through our local consult process, be selected, go into the pipeline, and then be in the construction pipeline. So that's our process for all future projects. The opportunity to study out this far will give us some other opportunities for corridor management.
Brent, does that mean that probably no way between now and 2026 to even start right away per se after? I mean, that's a pretty short amount of time.
I don't know that for right now. I mean, the next project has to be selected for construction development pipeline to go to the next stage. So you have to get in development pipeline next for the next phase.
Thank you.
I have one final comment. I wanted to remind everybody, it's in the flyer. The public meeting is being confirmed. The first public meeting on the project is on May 26th, 4:30 to 6:30 at Life Change Church in Wichita. So that's in the flyer. So mark your calendar for that. That's May 26th.
Commissioner Meitzner.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Dovetail on.
One more. Okay.
To dovetail on what Brent's response to Troy, and Brent and Mike, you kind of remember this. When we did the first part of Webb Road and then Greenwich Road, the Greenwich part, again, planned is the first part and second part, just like this. The state, we realized locally and statewide, you let the bid out about a year after the first one. It allowed at the time, now that's not saying what's going to happen now, but at the time it allowed the existing, end up being the existing contractors using dirt that's dug out of one to build and it used people and equipment, and it ended up saving, well, if Gary's here, was like 50 or $60 million. And we cut down a 12-year time frame to about 5. So I'm not saying that's what KDOT's intent is this time, but if we use history and logic, then it could evolve into a much cleaner than finishing, wait a year, do the next one. It's just my history, and I'm not saying what we have to do. I'm not telling KDOT what they have to do, but that's what happened in the past. So
I realize that's not set in stone, but I appreciate that history. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, yes, Alan, do you have a question? Can you go to a mic so everybody can hear you?
Hi, so I take it that the design is still part of the public discussion at this point. Is that right?
Yeah, the public input would be received at the public meeting regarding design and other factors.
Okay, so I noticed that as currently designed, you don't have any bike facilities on there. You do have 6-foot sidewalks on either side. The whole reason you're building this is because of the increase in the residential neighborhoods in the area, that basically they're neighborhoods all entirely encompassing this entire area. And this is really one of the few east-west corridors, obviously part of the reason it's being built. James, am I correct that Wichita's current policy on arterials is to try to put 10-foot on at least one side? On arterials, I know.
That's our design standard.
Okay, that's fine. That's all I want to know. I know this isn't an arterial.
Yes, our design standard is a 10-foot sidewalk,
okay,
or 10-foot path on one side and sidewalk on the other.
So for the same reason, it seems to me that it would make a whole lot of sense to have at least 10 foot on one side in the design on this.
Appreciate that input. Again, we need to consider the context of the access control freeway, and all those inputs would be received and evaluated, and definitely.
You already have putting sidewalks on.
Right.
10 foot instead of 6 foot.
I understand that. Also, we have to treat the end conditions, how do you enter and exit, and those so forth. So yeah, those kind of questions hopefully will be addressed in the public input process.
Hey, any other questions or comments for Raj? Again, I appreciate it, and I sincerely appreciate KDOT and Secretary Loren's support of this community.
Well convey that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'm going to leave the handouts here.
Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is an update on the TIP special amendment. Ashley, you're on.
All right, thank you. So I wanted to make you aware that we're doing this TIP special amendment and an MTP administrative revision. And the special amendment will be happening in the next month or so. We have a regular TIP amendment schedule, as you can see here, but we can do special amendments if necessary in order to help accommodate projects. And so that's what we're doing here. Amendments are typically done for projects if there's new projects or if the projects increase in price by 25% or $5 million or a couple of other reasons. The MTP administrative modification can be done if there's very small changes, specifically to project phases, years, small changes to funding, and this does not require a public comment period. We will bring it to you all for approval though. And Nick will talk about what we're doing.
Thank you, Ashley. We received a request from KDOT for the special tip amendment to happen earlier than the next scheduled regular amendment, actually because of the East Kellogg project that you just heard of, so that it can obligate on the intended schedule. And then after receiving that request from KDOT, we also emailed the administrative contacts for other projects in the 2021 to 2024 TIP, asking if they wanted any changes to their projects bundled into the same special amendment rather than waiting until the next regularly scheduled opportunity. And in addition to the project changes related to East Kellogg, there is also an amendment to one project in the city of Mays and an administrative adjustment being processed for an unrelated KDOT project. And because the East Kellogg project is going to be obligated earlier than what was originally shown in the MTP, the time band for it is being slightly adjusted for the administrative modification that you're hearing about, and that's why we're doing the administrative modification. And so that administrative modification will need to happen before the TIP special amendment, but before can mean before at the same as in an earlier agenda item at the same TPB meeting. And so we started the 30-day public comment period for the TIP special amendment on April 23rd, and it will run through May 22nd. On May 23rd at the Technical Advisory Committee meeting, both will be submitted for a recommendation, and that recommendation will be voted on by this body on June 14th. So just letting you know that all that's coming up. Any questions?
Very good. Thank you, Nick. Does anyone have any questions on why we're going to have a special modification to the TIP? So Mayor Usry is going to be busy the end of this month, and the rest of us are going to be busy next month. Very good. Ain't no questions. Thank you for the update. We look forward to that. Hey, the next item on the agenda is Alan, you're up for an update on the Active Transportation Committee.
Nick or Ashley, you need to cut my slides? Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, well, thank you. I am Alan Kaler. That's not quite the next slide, but we'll go with that. I am one of the co-chairs of the Active Transportation Committee. You've heard me up here several times talking about upcoming meetings, so I thought it might be a good idea to let you know what it is that we've accomplished so far. Just a little bit of background. For many years, WAMPO has had a priority to improve bicycle and pedestrian access throughout the region. For example, in the latest MTP, the Reimagine Move 2040, one of the priorities is to improve the quality of life, as it is for most of the communities in the area. And one of the key ingredients to improving the quality of life, according to the Move 2040 plan, is to increase the prevalence of pedestrian, bicycle, and transit alternatives to improve the quality of life. Both older and younger generations are increasingly using more and more alternative forms of transportation, according to the MTP, and both public input and data collected indicate that there is increased demand for walking, biking, and transit. So what is it that we are doing? WAMPO has an existing regional plan that was adopted in 2007. It was revised, updated in 2011. But since 2000, well, and that included a fairly ambitious plan. It was a good plan, but several things have happened since 2011. Wichita adopted a master bicycle plan and a master pedestrian plan. Many of the communities in the region have also adopted plans. There have been many facilities constructed, and there's been obviously changes in the population and the culture. I mentioned that several of the communities have adopted plans. These are the plans that we know of so far that have been adopted by the communities in the WAMPO region. All of these are available on the WAMPO website. We have been reviewing those plans. I'll get into that in a little bit later. In addition, WAMPO's annual bicycle and pedestrian count that was mentioned earlier has shown a significant, consistent increase in bicycle and pedestrian traffic in the area. In addition, KDOT is adopting a revised statewide active transportation plan, and that should be completed any day now. I've been saying that for a month or two, but it is, I understand it is in the final stages of publication. So given all of those developments, it was decided that we needed to update the regional plan. So what we're doing is inventorying the existing transportation infrastructure, looking at what exists on the ground now. We're looking at that to see how it connects, where there are gaps in that connectivity, and to identify what improvements need to be made. We're reviewing the different regions, the different plans of the communities in the region, and then we're going to update that existing plan or adopt a new plan. And we hope that plan will include not only recommended routes, but policies to facilitate and encourage biking, walking, and transit. It is a 3-year process. We're right in the middle of it right now. We've been meeting since September 2020. We're meeting quarterly. We've had representatives from several of the communities and WAMPO make presentations at our meeting. We've had presentations on what the existing plans are and what some thoughts are. So one of the key things that we have been doing is to receive presentations from different communities who have adopted active transportation plans. So we've received presentations from 8 different communities and from Sedgwick County. And we have learned several lessons from what has been presented so far. Several of the plans have robust plans for completing a network of pedestrian and bike facilities within their communities, connecting various resources, parks, community centers, schools, and that sort of thing. For example, Bel Air's plan and Derby's plan, Hayesville, all have plans that focus on building out a complete network. Second, most of the plans have a goal of connecting to nearby communities. This might be something that WAMPO would be particularly involved in. For example, Andover's plan, Hayesville's, Valley Center's all include specifically a goal to connect to adjoining communities. Some have policies to significantly improve the pedestrian access by having the city pay for sidewalks or paths on all the arterials, or fill in gaps in existing sidewalks, even on streets other than arterials. Again, some examples there. And then nearly all of the plans focus on connecting the neighborhoods to different resources, different amenities. As I said, six out of the 8 that we've heard so far. So, and then we've had presentations from the WAMPO staff on various things, including the bicycle pedestrian count, bicycle level of stress, and others. So our future, what are we going to do with all of this information? As I said, we've had presentations from about 1/3 of the communities in the area. Based on that input, we'll develop a revised regional plan for active transportation. The intention is that that completed plan will help prioritize future funding from WAMPO and be incorporated in the revised MTP in 2025. If your community is interested in participating in this, having input into that process, it's important that we have a presentation from you. Our next meeting is on Wednesday, June 1st. All our meetings are virtual, so they're real easy to get to. We'd love to have representatives from all of your communities participating in that and helping us come up with a new regional plan. Any questions?
Well, thank you, Alan. Do we have any questions for Alan today?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Next item is economic development. And before I bring Dan up, or Don up rather, to talk about Derby, let me just give you kind of a hint about how important that all of our economic development is here in the community. Tomorrow morning, we're going to have a discussion with government, industry, and education leaders here in Wichita, because Assistant Secretary of Commerce for the United States is going to be here in town. And so we're going to have an opportunity to sit down with Assistant Secretary Castillo over at the Kansas Leadership Center tomorrow morning. The mayor will represent the city of Wichita. Commissioner Meitzner and I will represent the government side of the county. But in addition, we'll have education involved, and especially the industry. And to let you know just kind of what the future has to hold for economic development in this region. You know that aircraft industry is one of the major industries that we have to support. If we look at the future of the aircraft industry alone, not counting all of the other industries that we have operating here, in the next 20 years, we're going to have to build 2 times as many planes as are flying today. And we're going to have to do it in half the time that it took to build the ones that are flying today. So how are we going to do that? You can't just do it because we don't have a workforce big enough to do that. We don't have industry big enough to do that right now. So we're going to have to do it with innovation. And that's what the whole theme of the discussion is going to be tomorrow, is how that we can use innovation with government, industry, and education working together. There is a coalition of 27 counties that this region is in that just look at innovation and what we're doing for the manufacturing and how we can innovate that for the future. So these discussions are critical. And why would she come to Wichita, Kansas? Well, that's an important question. Is because Wichita State University has put in for a huge grant. We're talking $200 million or so from Build Back America. And this Build Back America, we're in the finals for that. Believe it or not, we're in a handful of people that are in the finals for this. So this is an exciting time for us. And so economic development has kind of been my theme that I've been pushing this entire year on WAMPO, because everything that we do for moving goods and services is critical to make all of this happen. So I just wanted to let you know that the initiatives that are in place and are moving forward today are because of a lot of the efforts that are happening from the Federal Highway Administration, from KDOT, from WAMPO, from the cities and the communities to help these type of initiatives move forward. So I want to thank each and every one of the people that are helping us, because Commissioner Meitzner and I and the mayor could not go up and represent government if we didn't have the support of the community to make efforts like this happen so that we can bring people in like Secretary Castillo to show what things are happening here in our region that are innovative, that are going to make our region grow and are transformational to what's happening here. So I just wanted to preface that. Again, I thank everyone. Derby is going to brief now, but I just want to let you know that there's a lot more happening in this community. So I will turn it over to Don.
Good afternoon. I'm Dan Squires. I'm the Assistant City Manager for Development in Derby. I know there's a lot of communities going to be presenting about economic development in their communities. I got to go first this time, so I can't cheat and see what everybody else is doing. So you're going to get a pretty broad brush. I know we're getting fairly late in the day. I was hearing conversation earlier about getting out in 40 minutes at the last meeting, and I'm pretty sure we're not going to make that. So I'm going to try to move through these pretty quickly, and then if you have questions, you're welcome to ask me. But you're going to get probably more information than you ever wanted to know about economic development in Derby, which to us is a very broad concept. There's so many different things that impact economic development that I originally thought, what am I going to say? And then it's like, well, where do I stop? So I'll try to move through this fairly quickly. You're going to get a quick overview of Derby in general. It's important to understand Derby a little bit to understand our approach to economic development, what economic development tools we utilize. That's both your traditional tools and other things that may not traditionally be thought of as economic development tools. A quick overview of current development in Derby, and then a little bit about our transportation priorities. So Derby has grown a lot recently. We're actually a fairly old community. If you look at the red dot in the middle of the map on your left, that's the original town of El Paso, platted in 1869. Between 1869 and 1980, we grew to the area that is shown in blue. Since 1980, everything else has grown in Derby. Up until 1980, that was almost entirely residential. The areas in green are between 2000 and 2020. So our assessed valuation in 1980 was about $24 million. Our assessed valuation in 2000 was $88 million, and from 2000 to 2020 we've gone to $253 million. So part of that is because that commercial growth is assessed at a different rate than residential growth. But the other piece of that for us is that those two feed each other. People want to be where they can access goods, services, entertainment, and jobs. So if you look at the way Derby's set up in the map on the right, we have two real commercial corridors in Derby. The core of Derby is all still residential. We have the original K15 corridor. I'll show here. This is the K15 corridor here. That's stuff that was built anywhere from 100 to 50, 60 years ago. It's our older areas. It's our original economic engine in Derby. It is still a vital part of economic development in Derby. And then you have the Rock Road corridor here that is almost all national chains. It serves an entirely different purpose. Ironically, both corridors have very similar traffic on them. They both have 20, 25,000 vehicles a day now. That wasn't true 20 years ago. Rock Road was probably half of that, but it's grown a lot in the last 20 years. So the K15 corridor has some different challenges than Rock Road. Rock Road pretty much takes care of itself. The irony in that is that we get beat up at the city because we're not investing in the K15 corridor. It's all about Rock Road and the pretty trees and landscaping they got over there. And that's absolutely counter to what's going on. The Rock Road corridor pretty much takes care of itself because when a new business goes in, we have landscaping standards and we require sidewalks and we require turn lanes and we require traffic signals and things like that. And the K15 corridor doesn't do that. We are investing, and you're going to see we'll continue to invest heavily in the K15 corridor. So one other piece about the K15 corridor is the north portion up by 63rd Street is impacted by McConnell Air Force Base accident potential zone. So that limits what can be done in that area. McConnell doesn't technically limit us, but we like to be good neighbors, as Wichita and Sedgwick County also do, make sure that we assure the long-term viability of McConnell Air Force Base by protecting their interests. So one interesting thing about Derby is the pull factor, and that's basically the ratio of the per capita sales tax generated statewide and the per capita sales tax that's generated in Derby. So if you have a ratio that is less than 1, people in your community are getting their goods and services elsewhere. And if you have a per capita ratio that is greater than 1, Derby's is 1.33, that means people are coming into your community more and spending money in that community. So Derby is the 16th largest city of the first class in Kansas. We are 3rd in the pull factor. So that tells us that people are now coming to Derby and buying goods in Derby. We're serving more than just Derby with what we have in Derby. And that's going to become important later when we talk a little bit more. Economic development tools that we utilize, we create redevelopment plans. So again, that's not something we really need along the Rock Road corridor, but each of the areas along the K-15 corridor have different challenges. Capital investment, a lot of these overlap with each other. So you kind of see me go back and forth, but capital investment, not only in implementing the plans, but also in other facilities in Derby. We've built a lot of regional attractions. Our library is a regional library. If you look at who uses it, we built Rock River Rapids 20 years ago. If you track who comes to Rock River Rapids, our water park, it's not by a large extent just Derby residents. We have financial incentives, which are similar to a lot of communities, to the traditional economic development. And then we've developed some policies that are targeted specifically to Derby's needs, and in some cases, implementation of those plans. So we have the West End Development Plan. That is the green area here. That's the old core of Derby right along K-15. We have the K-15 area plan, which is a newer plan. That's an old county industrial type of development that we are pushing to redevelopment, and WAMPO is assisting with that. And then we have the Buckner Business District, which is kind of a unique district in between there that's kind of shown in purple. Each one of these areas had specific needs. The West End Development Plan called to vacate unused alleys and right-of-ways. So that is the old town of El Paso. It was platted in 25-foot by 140-foot lots. It's carved up with street right-of-ways, and in between every 140-foot lot is an alley. That was as it was originally platted. A lot of those alleys and streets were never built. The challenge in that is that you have very small lots. You usually get 2 or 3, but it's hard to aggregate enough land to do something meaningful on. So one of the recommendations was to vacate unneeded right-of-ways and alleys, and we have since done that. We went through a process where we identified what was in those alleys and street right-of-ways, and if they were undeveloped and they didn't have utilities and other things to protect them, then we vacated those so that those lots can be aggregated. Investment in infrastructure. This is an old area. You can see the before and after picture there. The before looks a little worse because we're doing utility relocation when that was taken care of, but not much. The roads in that area were very narrow. They had very thin surfacing on them. They were a constant maintenance problem for us. And it's hard to get people to reinvest in an area that has poor roads. It did not have engineered drainage. So we spent about $2.5 million and we constructed an industrial standard loop through that entire area, 41-foot back-to-back roads, curb and gutter, stormwater, sewer, engineered drainage. So it suggested considering a quiet zone. BNSF Railroad runs through this area, and if you're not familiar with quiet zones, the train conductors or the operators are required to blow their horn a quarter mile in front of every crossing. If you don't have a quiet zone, well, we have a crossing every half mile. So they're pretty much continuously blowing their horn through Derby. We get, last count I had was 34 trains a day. If you're doing business along the K-15 corridor, every time a train comes through, things kind of come to a halt until the train goes by, and then you can go back to having your conversation. So we completed a quiet zone study in 2018 and 2019. Unfortunately, we had a fatality accident in 2018, which impacts the ability to implement a quiet zone. It just makes it harder. Those accidents stay on the record for about 5 years. So that accident is getting ready to fall off. We'll be having a conversation with the city council during the budget process this year about implementing a quiet zone in that area. So one common in these older areas is blight and sign clutter. I'm going to talk a little bit about that more towards the end. So Buckner Business District is unique in the fact that we've got 50 residential lots that were built in the 50s and 60s immediately across Buckner from commercial zoning. That's not real common anymore. In the 90s, I think Oliver was realigned with Buckner north of Derby. That increased traffic on there. So what we did when we needed to reconstruct Buckner is we looked at what was going on with Buckner and realized that traffic was in the neighborhood of 6,000 vehicles a day. The residential properties on the east side of that were more than half rental properties. They were not owner occupied. The truth is that 7,000 vehicles a day is not conducive to residential. People don't want to raise their kids in a house that's got 7,000 vehicles a day in front of it. So we rezoned the residential properties to a unique district that allowed them to be redeveloped into professional offices, things like that, that were compatible with the residential use that was already there. We didn't force anybody out. Residential use is still legal, but we allow other uses that are higher value uses that those houses can be remodeled. And we've seen those start to transition. In some cases, the houses are removed entirely and new structures are built. In some cases, the houses have been remodeled into some type of an office building. That's still ongoing. Unfortunately, we did that right about 2008, and the economy kind of tanked for a while after that, but we're starting to see a little bit more of that. So the goal with that was to capitalize on the traffic rather than have it be a deterrent. The K15 area plan is the redevelopment of that industrial area that was originally developed in the county. It's impacted by the APZ. We can't do Rock Road type of development there. We don't like to see restaurants and bars and anything that aggregates a large number of people in one place in the accident potential zone. So the biggest deterrent in the K15 area was access and circulation. As it exists now, there's a single access road along K15, and literally like 60 feet off of K15. You've got very deep lots. They don't benefit from it. You can see these properties great. They've got great visibility from K15. They just don't have access and circulation. So we also have some issues with sign clutter and blight in that space. So capital investment, I mentioned Buckner Street, we completely reconstructed in 2008. Water and K Street in the West End is an industrial standard. And with some help from WAMPO, we're working now on improving access to the K15 area. What you see here is the improvements that are in the tip now for Nelson and K15. It includes a new access to K15 and better circulation. We've got multi-phases and multi-funding sources to reinvent this area. The purple area there is realignment of Nelson Drive. That is part of a TIF district that the TIF plan has been approved. It is triggered when Menards goes in. So the blue area here, that is platted and zoned for Menards. They've had some setbacks with a pandemic and a labor shortage, which has delayed them some. But when they come in, that provides the revenue to pay the bonds to do the purple project. The blue project gets built with Menards. Those are private drives. And then we expect the rearage road, which takes advantage and narrows those lots up by providing dual frontage with the gold area there. So that would be something that would be special assessed when those properties are replatted. Financial incentives, these are the most commonly thought of economic development tools. We are currently in the process of updating our economic development policy. We're not doing that with an intent of competing with our neighbors. We're not trying to steal businesses from our neighboring communities. We just want to be consistent with what everybody else so that we're not in a situation. I'll tell you, we just had about a year ago, we approved IRBs for a $8.7 million expansion of BG products. They did not qualify at that time under our current incentives policy for those IRBs, but they would have in other communities. So we're updating ours generally to be consistent with the communities around us. And that's our goal in that process. West End Business Park, like many communities, we do have an industrial park and a business park. We have shifted focus in recent years. We went a long time, we would go sit at trade shows and try to attract some lucrative new business. We did not have a lot of success in that. Our focus has changed. We would still love, if anybody's got business they want to move to Derby, we're all in. But we've had much more success in facilitating the growth and expansion of existing businesses and retention of those businesses in Derby. So there's two ways we do that. We do tax abatements. We market the land in the industrial park for 70 cents a square feet. That's very reasonable. It's basically the cost of the infrastructure we put in to serve the park to begin with. It's just recouping those costs, so you're getting the land for free. But what we've done on several recent ones is give the land away in lieu of other financial incentives. So we've got the 4 lots in green remained available. 2 of our success stories in the bottom right corner is BRG Precision Products. That is a company that started in Derby. It was a firefighter making atomic clocks in his garage. He has grown. He outgrew that space. He moved into another space. He outgrew that space. Then moved to the industrial park and since then acquired another lot in the industrial park and expanded again. Aircraft and commercial enterprises is the 2 ace lots here. Those were the first ones that we gave land away to. We gave land away. When we do that, we have a commitment that they have a certain amount of time to build what they said they were going to build. That's very similar to what you would get if you were doing IRBs with a pilot agreement and a clawback provision. If they don't do what they said they were going to do, then they give the land back. They have done what they said they were going to do in the process now. We've given them another lot and they're expanding onto it. We've updated our zoning regulations to facilitate more dense and infill development. We have reduced setback requirements. We've reduced parking requirements. We actually have areas now where you've got a sea of parking in front of an existing retail center and it's never utilized. That would allow, we've allowed the mixing of commercial and residential uses. So you could actually now go put pockets of residential in these commercial areas. And by reducing the parking requirements and the setback requirements, you free up space also to do that. So very focused on redevelopment. Against that benefits the K-15 corridor. One of the challenges that we've got, again, in the older areas is that we have very experienced organizations that develop along Rock Road, but along the K-15 corridor, you may have a local business that owns another building or something like that. And the planning process and the planning fees can be very daunting to them. So we have targeted, reduced, and waived fees. If you've got an old building in the West End that needs to go, we're not going to charge you for a demo permit to remove that building that we think needs to be removed. We've cut our planning fees by 50% in a lot of those. So just making it easier and less daunting for small scale developers to develop and redevelop in the area. We have adopted property maintenance codes. Again, both the K-15 area and the West End area have a focus on dilapidated buildings and obsolete signs. So we have adopted codes. We've had some of those codes on the books for a long time. It is not very palatable either for city staff or politically to go beat up small businesses about replacing their signs or painting their building. A lot of times the finances just aren't there for them to do that. And unfortunately, that means the guy next door doesn't want to invest in his building even if he afford to not also. So one of the things that we've done is the city council last year approved the commercial facade improvement program. It's a 50% matching grant for facade improvements, landscaping, ADA, and sign improvements. So if a property owner or a business is willing to put $5,000 into facade, landscaping, ADA improvements in their building, the city is going to match that 50%. So you can get $10,000 worth of facade improvements and you're only going to pay half of that. That's again in these targeted areas. We have a lot of obsolete signs. Pole signs are no longer allowed in Derby. They're legal if they're there. But we've got signs that have cabinets that are missing. We've got panels that are missing. So under the same program, if you are taking an obsolete or non-conforming sign and you're bringing it into compliance, you can get another $7,500 under the same program for that purpose. So this is softening the blow as we adopt policies that could impact, and that's something our Economic Development Board told us is they were concerned as we adopt these policies about what we're doing to small business. And this is a way that the council has chosen to mitigate the impact to those businesses. I will tell you, we sent 34 letters out to owners of signs that are currently illegal, but the first thing we told them is, hey, we've got this new program, and in 6 months we're going to start enforcing the sign code, but right now you're invited to go aside to apply for this program. What does that look like? These are a couple of applications we've already got from this program. This is an existing business in Derby. You can see the existing building on one side and what they're proposing to make it look like on the other side. And then another one, this is right on K-15. It's got an old pole sign out there. They are proposing facade improvements on this building also, but they want to replace that with a conforming ground sign. So I am going to try to skip over or go through the current development in Derby pretty quickly. We've got a lot of residential development. What you see here with red stars is existing neighborhoods. Those are filling up quickly. We have blue are things that are in planning process right now. They've been annexed into the city of Derby. They're being platted and developed. I'll tell you that Northbrook in Derby was platted in 2018, 142 lots. It's nearly built out. So we're building houses like crazy. At this time last year, we had 10 new single-family residential permits. At the end of April, we had 39 this year. So we are needing spaces to grow and build houses. One other interesting, the red dot here, the two things that we really need in Derby from a housing perspective are not new houses, but if you look at the valuations that we're seeing on our permits, the cost of a new house in Derby, if you're building from 2020 to 2022, has gone up $50,000. There is it's very difficult to find affordable housing anywhere, but Derby is as bad as anybody. So one kind of cool area, that and senior housing are our two focuses. We have Pleasant View Elementary that was abandoned by the school district when they built a new school as part of their last bond issue. We have a developer who's come in and is going to make 40 senior residences out of that. They're capitalizing on the existing school building, and for part of that, they're keeping the gymnasium as an amenity to the community and redeveloping that into a residential site, which is kind of cool. We are doing, as listed on there, is a housing study. If communities are not aware, state law has changed. So rural housing incentives were not available in Sedgwick County prior to the change in law, but now though you can apply for those incentives. It's basically like a TIF district for residential, but you have to do a housing study before you can become eligible for that. I think in Derby, more than likely, that housing study will show what I said, which is a need for entry-level housing and for senior housing, and then we could target those areas with another economic development. So a lot of commercial development. I mentioned BG and ACE. I'm going to skip that because in the interest of time. One of the biggest things you may have seen if you're on Facebook around Derby is you're hearing about star bonds right now, and you're hearing about them in Wichita too. I think they've kind of got a bad rap in some places. If done properly, star bonds are an amazing financial tool. We approved our first star bond district and our bond issue in 2017 for Field Station Dinosaurs and Rock Regional Hospital. Those are both open and operating. The hospital itself was a $40 million investment in Derby. We approved a second phase, and that is for Derby Sports Zone and ROKC. Derby Sports Zone is similar to a Chicken and Pickle. The developer is a gentleman that owns a business called the Sandbox in Kansas City. So it's sand volleyball. It's got a dome over it. It'll have sand volleyball courts. This is a picture of the facility that's being built right now. It's got rooftop dining. The building on the right is indoor courts. It has volleyball, which volleyball is basketball and bumper cars. So they do corporate team building. They all do all sorts of different things in there. So we're excited about that. That's expected to open this summer. ROKC is a 65-foot indoor competitive rock climbing wall. That is tall enough to have Olympic qualifying events at. And that also includes an outdoor BMX pump track. So these are all attractions that work with each other. If you're trying to attract people to your area and they're all in the Star Bond District, that is approved and expected to go under construction. Those bonds were issued and is expected to go under construction late this year. So, and our final phase. So City Council tonight will be having a public hearing on the final phase of our Star Bond District. These bonds have not been issued. What's proposed is a Crystal Lagoon and Hotel. That's a 150 unit Marriott Suites product with a 1.5 to 3 acre public access lagoon attached to it. It also has an indoor water park. The Great Wolf Lodge, actually, the developer of this this piece of the development were the original people who did Great Wolf Lodge back in the day. So they've got an indoor water park for year round, an outdoor lagoon. It consists of glamping sites, 40 glamping sites. That's glamorous camping. It's like Forbes magazine's hot new recreational trend. You can be as rugged as you want or don't want to be as far as camping. If you want to call them, they'll come out and start your campfire for you. Some of the units are air conditioned. It ties to the lagoon. They will actually allow discounted tickets to the lagoon as part of the glamping amenity. It includes an aerial park. It's not shown on here, but that's a great use for the 7 acres of floodplain up in the corner. So we'll have zip lining. Something kind of different for a star bond district, 300 apartment units and senior housing. So this development, in addition to bringing those amenities to Derby, also helps address the housing needs for affordable housing and senior housing in Derby if it's approved. So that represents a $130 million investment in Derby total. What's kind of unique about this phase of this star bond district is that the developer has most of these components on board now. So a lot of time they go out and they get the attraction approved and they say, well, when we build this attraction, then the restaurant's going to want to come. In this case, almost all of those component developers are already on board. So that's fun for the council tonight to get to address that. Our transportation priorities, ARC 95 is Derby's top transportation priority. That's not just a Derby thing. I mentioned the pull factor before. We were in 1980 a bedroom community. Almost up till 2000, we were a bedroom community. If you wanted anything, you drove to Wichita to get it. That is not the case. That pull factor demonstrates that. There are a lot of people in communities around us that work in Derby. We've got a hospital that has to be staffed. We've got restaurants, we've got retail, we've got schools. There are a lot of people that come to Derby for services. We've got library, they come for entertainment. So being able to have people access Derby is important to us. It's not just important to us, it's important to the other communities that support ARC 95, because the way you get people to stay is by giving them convenient accesses to jobs and services. So it's important to other communities in southern Sedgwick County that they be able to access the services in Derby conveniently also. So if you're not familiar for ARC 95, I could give a whole nother presentation on it, but one of the transportation challenges south of Kellogg in Sedgwick County is that there's really not a lot of river crossings and BNSF Railroad. I mentioned 34 trains a day. There's no grade separated crossing of BNSF Railroad. It parallels K-15 all the way through southern Sedgwick County. So ARC 95 addresses both of those issues with a grade separated crossing over BNSF. It ties to K-15. It provides access to the turnpike, which helps reduce congestion and freight movement on K-15, which is congested between Derby and Wichita also. So other transportation priorities, Heartland Flyer passenger rail is important to Derby. I think it's important to the whole region. If you've been watching, there's some kind of unique opportunities right now through the bipartisan infrastructure law to get that funded. We feel like the Heartland Flyer provides on a much larger regional scale the same types of benefit that ARC 95 provides to the local communities in southern Sedgwick County. So long term, we'd also like to see an expansion of Wichita Transit. We know there's challenges with that. Transit does help us operate the Derby Dash. And we appreciate that, but that stays local to Derby. And as I mentioned before, it's more and more important for Derby and the communities around us now to be able to get from one community to the other regionally than just within our community. Again, the Dash serves a vital role in Derby, but it doesn't connect people in Derby to Wichita and Clearwater and Hayesville and other communities that could benefit from that. So that was a lot. I went through it pretty quick. I'd be happy to answer anything you'd like to know about any of those policies or areas or anything else.
Well, thank you, Dan. I appreciate the update. The economic development that you've got going on impacts our entire region, not just Derby. And WAMPO and the Transportation Coalition support the Heartland Flyer. They support ARC 95. So we're going to continue to support those major projects to help move goods and services in and out of that region. So thank you very much for the update. You kind of set the standard for the other communities now that are going to brief in the future. Are there any questions for Derby? Commissioner Meitzner.
Thank you, Chairman. Just real quick, congratulations, Dan, on being a first class, city of the first classes now.
Thank you.
And with that comes the headaches of first class. But
there are some, it does have some impacts.
Just a quick comment. I think, and Brian, you're still here, on your reviewing your incentive program. And Brian Fry and I were very involved in a mutual incentive program for the city of Wichita and Sedgwick County adopted. And it really kind of helped GW, and GWP was involved hugely, even hired an outside consulting firm that what's best practices that fits us. And I think cities like Park City and Bel Air, and even as far as Newton and Andover, have benefited from a regional approach to economic incentives. So if you find yourself in conflict with some, I would just suggest use that.
I will just tell you that right behind our proposed policy is the Wichita Sedgwick County policy in there. So it's good. You're going to find that it mirrors that policy. As I mentioned before, we're not interested in trying to compete. We want to be consistent. More than that, probably the only significant difference in our policy is the speculative building policy. I want to say that the Wichita Sedgwick County one requires like 100,000 square feet, which probably doesn't fit well in Derby as a minimum. And I think we're at 25,000. But again, we're not trying to steal anything from anybody else. We believe that economic development, as has been said, is a regional issue, and that we want to be regional partners in that process.
Yeah, that's good. And I know you refer to the West End. I've spent a lot of time in Dallas, and they have a nice West End. So if you duplicate what Dallas is, you're going to be really good.
We're a little ways from that, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I don't see anything. Thank you again for the presentation. I appreciate it. Moving on to the next item then is Executive Committee. I want to let you know that Chad and I talked earlier this month, and we did not see a need for an Executive Committee meeting at this point in time. So we did not schedule one. The only thing that I want to address a little bit is I had Becky Tuttle mention last month that all of our Executive Committee meetings are open meetings. So I guess if you all think about it a little bit, not only the Executive Committee members, but all of the members in the TPB, what I'm interested in is what's your concept of how do we make sure that we can schedule Executive Committee meetings so that they are open for the community, anyone that wants to attend? So should we start scheduling a regular Executive Committee meeting or something like a quarterly Executive Committee meeting? I don't need discussion today. What I want to do is put it in your mind is how can we address this? This meeting is obviously an open meeting, but hey, we tell everybody it's the second Tuesday of the month and everybody knows it's here. So what do we do in the future for our Executive Committee to make sure that the public is always welcome? So think about that. I'll give you homework. And so I'll ask you next month if anyone has any recommendations. So that's where we're at on Executive Committee. The next, any questions on that? Seeing none, next item is our active transportation. Now, Alan already made a presentation. I don't know if you have anything new. Very good. We'll move on. KDOT Metro, Tom.
Yeah, I'm so used to following the active transportation. I tried to jump the menu today, and sure would have saved us some time, but we would have missed a good presentation by Dan. Thank you, Dan. I don't have anything specific. We have 10 active KDOT projects right now on the highway, plus the city of Wichita one on northbound 135 for the water main repair. I put out a 3-page electronic email to you for your convenience. If you want to know about this week's activities, next week activities, comes out every week and sometimes 3 and 4 times a week as things change. Just let me know what your email is if you want to get more in your in basket. Any questions for me?
Very good. Any questions, Tom? Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is KDOT from Kansas. So Brent or Mike?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing much to report out of Topeka today. Do want to make the group aware of personnel change at KDOT. For about the last 10 months or so, Christy Wilson has served as the sort of planning liaison between KDOT and WAMPO. We did learn last week that Christy's going to take a different opportunity. This Friday will be her last day. She will be missed. She stepped in again about 10 months ago. There was a kind of a transition period back then, so she helped kind of shepherd through that very capably. And she's been with KDOT for about 3 years. So we thank her for her 3 years of service to KDOT and wish her all the best with her next opportunity. I believe Christy is on the go-to meeting. Christy, if you'd like to come off mute and say a few words, please do so. If not, I can't fire you. So.
Well, okay. Yes. I've got a little feedback going on. But I just wanted to say I've appreciated the opportunity to work with the WAMPO staff and with the boards. They're a fantastic group of people, and they really work to do their best, and I appreciate that. They ask before they go in, and they always have questions, and they always want to know what the right thing to do is before they charge forward, and I truly appreciate that as well. So I wish everybody the best in the future, and hopefully at some point, if I'm in the Wichita area, I might just stop by and surprise you, because the one regret is that I never really had a chance to get down and meet everybody in person. So so I appreciate everyone there, all the hard work that you guys are doing, and I see you guys going far in the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Christy. We appreciate it. We appreciate all the support from KDOT. Anything else from KDOT? Thank you very much. I appreciate that too. The next item is Federal Highway Administration. We've got Ms. Cochran, I believe, is on the line.
Hi, everyone. I do have a few notes from Rick Backlund, our division administrator. He had to step out, so I'm just gonna shoot them off for you guys and let me know if you need clarification or need me to stop. He did want to thank everyone who came out for the bill workshop in Wichita. He said it was such a pleasure to see everyone face to face. And he wanted to let everyone know that as a follow-up from that bill workshop, there will be several grant opportunities available, new ones as a result of bill coming this summer. He says stay tuned for more details on which ones and the amounts that will be available. So you all have that to look forward to. Also, we wanted to just congratulate everybody on their collaboration for the East Kellogg project. We know there's a lot of work going on with that, a lot of people involved. It seems to be going quite smoothly for such a big project. So Rick wanted to acknowledge the hard work that everyone is doing on that. He also wanted to congratulate WAMPO on getting a head start on their active transportation plan. He looks forward to seeing, you know, new projects or anything that is a result of this plan. And also there is a new development for pre-certification for grants at the Kansas LTAP Center. And it is available for any locals who hope to apply for any of the new bill grants coming up. This certification will allow the locals to be more equipped in what to expect and what they can do in collaboration with KDOT and Federal Highway should they take up applications for new grants. Todd Southrank at KDOT will be a good contact for this. And also, Rick and I wanted to just reiterate that we do plan to attend some of the upcoming meetings in person this summer, now that all of the COVID regulations are kind of smoothing out. So you'll look forward to seeing us in person instead of just virtually. That's all I had.
Thank you. Any questions for Cecily? I don't see anything. Thank you very much for the update. We appreciate it. Does any other business need to come for WAMPO today? Seeing nothing, we're adjourned. We'll see you next month. Thanks for attendance today.